The debt ceiling is a cap on how much money the United States can borrow to fund the government and pay its bills. It was created by Congress in 1917 to simplify the process of borrowing money for World War I. Since then, Congress has increased or suspended the debt limit 78 times to keep up with the growing national debt, which crossed $31 trillion for the first time last year. The debt ceiling matters for the U.S. economy and the world because it affects the ability of the federal government to meet its financial obligations. These include Social Security and Medicare benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, tax refunds, and other payments. If the debt ceiling is not raised or suspended, the Treasury Department will run out of cash and borrowing authority by June 1st, according to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. This could lead to a default on some of these obligations, which would have serious consequences for the economy and financial markets. A default could cause a sharp rise in interest rates, a drop in the value of the dollar, a loss of confidence in U.S. creditworthiness, a disruption of global trade and payments, and a recession. It could also trigger legal challenges and political turmoil. A default has never happened before in U.S. history, but it has come close several times. The most recent debt ceiling crisis was in 2011, when Congress reached a last-minute deal to avoid a default after weeks of brinkmanship. The uncertainty caused by the standoff led to a downgrade of the U.S. credit rating by Standard & Poor's for the first time ever. To avoid a default this year, Congress needs to act quickly to raise or suspend the debt limit. However, this is easier said than done. The debt ceiling has become a political weapon that both parties have used to extract concessions from each other on fiscal and policy issues. Republicans are demanding that an increase in the borrowing cap be accompanied by spending cuts and other cost savings. Democrats are refusing to negotiate on these terms and insist that raising the debt ceiling is a bipartisan responsibility that should not be held hostage to partisan demands. President Biden recently met with congressional leaders from both parties at the White House to discuss a path forward. But no agreement was reached and talks are ongoing at the staff level. Time is running out, and the stakes are high. The debt ceiling is not just a number. It is a reflection of the fiscal health and political stability of the United States and its role in the global economy. The debt ceiling is a legal limit on how much money the federal government can borrow to pay its bills. It covers spending that Congress has already approved, such as Social Security benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, and tax refunds. The debt ceiling does not authorize new spending, but it allows the government to borrow money to fund existing programs. The United States reached its debt limit of $31.381 trillion on January 19, 2023. Since then, the Treasury Department has been using accounting tricks, known as extraordinary measures, to avoid defaulting on its obligations. However, these measures are expected to run out by June 1, 2023, according to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. If Congress does not raise or suspend the debt ceiling by then, the government will run out of cash and be unable to pay all of its bills on time. This would have serious consequences for the economy and the financial markets. Some of the potential effects of a debt ceiling crisis are a spike in interest rates. If investors lose confidence in the ability of the United States to repay its debt, they will demand higher interest rates to lend money to the government. This will increase the cost of borrowing for the government and for businesses and consumers. Higher interest rates will also reduce economic growth and job creation. A drop in credit ratings. If the United States fails to pay its debt obligations on time, credit rating agencies could downgrade its sovereign credit rating. This would signal that the United States is a riskier borrower and could trigger further increases in interest rates and market volatility. A disruption in government services. If the government runs out of cash, it will have to prioritize which bills to pay and which ones to delay or cancel. This could affect millions of Americans who rely on government benefits and services, such as Social Security checks, Medicare payments, veterans benefits, food stamps, federal salaries and contracts. A hit to consumer confidence. If Americans see that their government is unable to manage its finances and pay its bills, they may lose faith in the economy and reduce their spending and saving. This could hurt businesses and slow down the economic recovery from the pandemic. A global financial crisis. If the United States defaults on its debt, it could trigger a chain reaction of financial shocks around the world. The U.S. is the world's reserve currency, and U.S. Treasury bonds are considered the safest assets in the global financial system. A default by the United States could undermine the stability and liquidity of these markets and cause widespread panic and contagion. The debt ceiling crisis affects ordinary people in many ways. It could increase their borrowing costs, reduce their income and benefits, disrupt their access to government services, and harm their economic prospects. It could also damage their trust in their government and democracy. What are some potential solutions or compromises that could be reached by the Congress and the President to avoid a default or a shutdown? Here are 4 ways that have been suggested by experts and lawmakers, and why they might not work. 1. The discharge petition. This is a House procedure that allows 218 members to force a bill out of committee and to a vote, even if the leadership doesn't want to. This could be used to pass a debt ceiling increase with bipartisan support. However, this process is very slow and complicated. It requires the bill to be in committee for 30 legislative days, then gather signatures, then wait for 7 more legislative days before a vote. By then, it might be too late to avoid a crisis. 2. Payment prioritization. This is the idea that the Treasury could pay some bills and not others, depending on their importance. For example, it could prioritize paying interest on the debt, Social Security benefits, and military salaries, while delaying payments to contractors, grants, and other programs. This way, it could avoid technically defaulting on the debt. However, this would still cause severe economic damage and legal challenges. It would disrupt vital services, harm millions of people and businesses, and erode trust in the government's ability to manage its finances. 3. Minting the coin. This is a controversial proposal that involves using a legal loophole to create a platinum coin with a face value of $1 trillion or more, and depositing it at the Federal Reserve. This would allow the Treasury to access more cash without borrowing or raising the debt limit. However, this would be seen as a gimmick that could spook investors and markets, undermine the credibility of the U.S. currency, and violate the spirit of the Constitution. 4. Invoking the 14th Amendment. This is a constitutional argument that says that the validity of the public debt shall not be questioned, and that the President has the authority to ignore or override the debt limit if necessary to protect the national interest. This would allow the President to order the Treasury to keep borrowing and paying all bills as usual. However, this would be legally questionable and politically explosive. It would face immediate legal challenges from Congress and other parties, spark a constitutional crisis, and provoke a backlash from voters.